Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today we have Blue Belt Dan Carter, but more importantly, meditation guru Dan Carter. So I've known Dan for many years, and last year during the second Melbourne lockdown, the one that went for months and months, I joined his online meditation Zoom sessions. I think they were 6:45 a.m. twice a week, and yeah, we would sit. We would just sit and breathe and focus. And yeah, so we've wanted to have you on for quite a while to talk about meditation. We've had people come on and talk about yoga and jiu-jitsu, but we'd really love to explore the side around meditation in general and meditation if it relates to jiu-jitsu, if it can, and that sort of side of things. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you. G'day.
Hey, welcome, brother. Good to have you on the show, man. Is that your blue belt over there on that rack? I can see in the background there. What is that?
No, that's a power band, got to stretch out the hips.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you
That
do.
is
I
something.
got a place with like a thing I can attach stuff to. It's just a fluke.
Yeah, cool, buddy.
Yes.
It's good to have the workout gear in the background.
That was something I definitely felt, having to sit. You wouldn't think like sitting for an hour is much, but when you've been doing jiu-jitsu for a while and your hips are as mine are, it is very challenging to sit. Dan can actually sit in like full lotus pose as well. So like sitting with your
Like, I
legs,
actually can't sit in full load.
Oh, you can't you?
Nah,
It looked like
I
it to
can
me.
pretend,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was doing sort of something like Burmese style.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as both knees are both on the ground, then it does
Not
the
happening
job.
for me. Man,
What is the
was
trick
not
with
happening.
that, Dan? Like, not the actual pose, but as far as like I do breathing exercises every morning as part of my morning ritual, and just 11 minutes of being in the same position I struggle for. Like how do you develop the muscle to, like, when you're in a meditation or you're in some sort of focus exercise and your body wants to move, what do you do?
Well, probably you have to move, Like there's always going to be a time when it's the right time to stay still and push it a little bit. The first retreat I went on was the most painful thing I've ever done. Sort of 5 days, I was sobbing on the cushion.
Wow.
Because I was so determined to sit still and prove that I could do it. But largely it's about not fighting something, A lot of the pain we have in our hips and our back is emotional. And if you sort of really figure out how to let go of some stuff, then the pain dissolves at the same time.
So you've actually discovered that, like you've actually let go of pain, and then you, like, emotional pain, and then the physical pain disappears.
Yeah, massively.
Wow.
I'm probably the first, 5, 6, 7 retreats I went on. There was a point, like the night of day 4 or the morning of day 5, where I was in agony and physical agony, and then something would let go. Like I'd really, really hone in on the pain and focus and just resolve myself to sit with it. And then it would go, and I'd be like maybe crying, just for a couple of hours straight with joy at the release, and also have access to memory that I hadn't had access to before,
Wow.
That sort of thing's ongoing. Like it's kind of harder to access after you've been doing it for a while, because if you sit without pain, there's nothing to
resist or to come up.
Lock in on that way, yeah.
So
Wow.
tell us about these retreats. Like you say, like 4 to 5 days as though it's nothing. I mean, for some people, sitting for 4 to 5 minutes is too long. Like, what exactly did it involve? Like, what's a typical, if there is such a thing, a typical retreat?
Yeah, like a Soto Zen retreat here, with the community I'm a part of here, is 7 days. And they say like 5 days is sort of like a full cycle. It's probably the minimum that you want to do it for. You get up at 4 a.m. The sits are sort of anywhere between half an hour and 50 minutes. And there's maybe 7 formal sits a day. And then you eat breakfast and lunch in the same position, like formal meditation position. You have a chosan, like a tea service with everybody for about an hour. And then a teisho, like a dharma talk in the afternoon. So that's all sort of formal practice. You know,
Mm.
you eat in a particular way, you bow, you do walking meditation between sits. So the sits are in groups of 2, and you'll do 10 minutes walking between.
Mm.
Yeah.
How long did you say you sit for? Like, what's the longest you sit for in one kind of sit? You know,
I think the second morning sit is about 50 minutes.
okay,
Yeah.
that's doable. Like I thought these retreats would be like 5 hours or something in one pose, but that would I would not
There's
be.
all sorts of different, Vipassana retreats, I think, do a lot longer
Okay.
in one sitting, and they might even, like, people rock up for the first time and they've got people sitting 10, 12 hours a day, which seems a little bit gnarly.
It's a little bit gnarly.
Yeah. In Japan, once a month in the monastery, you sit for, like, they'll have a session between 3 and 8 days. Session literally means gathering the mind. And they might be up to 11 sits a day, but
Right.
same thing, sort of between 35, 50 minutes. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Wow. So how many of those retreats have you been on, did you say?
I don't know, maybe 20.
Wow. And you've done a silent retreat. Tell us about that. How long was that? And did you find that difficult?
So I've spent probably in the last 6 years maybe done like 10 months monastic time in Thailand, Japan, and a little bit of time in an ashram in India as well. And so they all run them differently. The Thai one's silent, like 10 days silent. And I've also got a tent set up in the bush on my mum's partner's property.
You rock, man.
Built a big 6 metre deck, like 6 by 6 metre deck with my mum's partner. I put a 6 by 4 metre tent on it. And so I've done a few sort of just private silent retreats up there, just hang out with the birds. And
So cool.
did 3 weeks at the start of this year, which was.
And that's okay. You find that 3 weeks like easy, or you find it challenging, or
it.
how?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing better. The hard part's coming back.
So you don't go through spaces. Like, I find my life kind of, at the moment, I've got I've read a book called The 5 a.m. Club. So I get up at 5 a.m. I have a 20-20-20 kind of morning routine, which I won't really go into now because this is about you. But days like 1 to 7 or 8 or 9, or however long I've been doing it for, were really exciting. And then like day 10, 11, I'm starting to find like I'm on a roller coaster, let's put it that way. And right now I've been at the top, it's been so amazing. And now I'm finding like I have to find ways to kind of generate myself in the mornings again, which I'm excited because I presume it's going to be, amazing at the next levels. When you're on, 3 weeks on your own personal silent retreat, do you not go through waves and stages, or are you just at a level where it's just bliss the whole time?
No, certainly. The ones I've been doing by myself are a bit of an experiment. So I've had to come up with my own schedule. I've tried to approximate a monastic schedule, but I've had to figure out something that's sustainable for me over a longer period of time. I think at the start of this year, probably 7 or 8 days in, I was really struggling. But the beauty of it is, like, when all you've got is a routine and there's no distractions from the world, I couldn't imagine trying to do it here, right? Because the world's crazy and it pulls you this way and pulls you that way, and we're subject to all of those conditions. And the more that you sit in that fashion, the more permeable you are. The more. Sorry.
It's totally fine. It's the world pulling you in a direction.
See, it's so hard in this place.
Okay, right. So, like, all of your barriers of self that you've built up from when you're born to protect yourself from the world start to dissolve a little bit, right? And so if you're out in the bush and there's no distractions, there's no input from other human beings, then it becomes very, very beautiful. And that doesn't mean, like, when those barriers come down, you're still open, like you're just as open to suffering as you are to joy, right? But because you're creating a certain set of conditions, then joy is more available. And if you push too hard, it hurts, and it's really difficult. But if you find just something that you can sustain, then it becomes beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't obviously done anything like that, but I know myself, just even when you go camping and you haven't got a signal or whatever, and I think it's a similar sort of principle that you're a bit disconnected from the world, and it's nice, it is nice to sort of not have those distractions and have all that noise, etc. What would you say to people who are looking to introduce some forms of meditation into their daily life here with all these distractions? Like, there's a lot of apps around. I know myself, before we started doing the group, and I have to admit, unfortunately, when the group's not on, I am a bit slack with making it a consistent part of my day. How would someone introduce this into their daily life?
I think it's exactly as you say. If you go out camping and you go to the prom for a few days and you come back, the world is a bit of a shock as soon as you see concrete again and that sort of thing. So I think it's quite important to create an environment in which you can practice. Like, you need to have a routine and a ritual, same thing as, the 5 a.m. club or whatever. Even if it's just, I've been trying to say it to you, Kim, if it's just 5 minutes a day, just to create that habit.
Yeah.
And then not to expect anything from it. It doesn't necessarily make life easier. You start peeling back the layers of yourself. Ultimately it's about autonomy from the world and not being subject to it. But we are, we engage with it. And so we have to carve out a little bit of a space for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
So I've got an altar, and I try and make sure that every time I sit, I go through the same routine. I light a piece of incense and light the candle and do 3 bows and sit down and ring the bell 3 times, ring the bell when I finish, do bows again. Just so the mind kind of knows what to expect. You've got to create a structure, within which to work.
So the structure, hello, little puppy. That's Bruno, by the way.
This is why I said this is my most stressful podcast ever. I need to be calm. I need to be zen. He just, now he's going to bite. He's going to bite everything.
Incredibly cute. That's Bruno. That's the new third host.
My new member of the family. Yes.
So with the meditation, because you train jiu-jitsu as well, right? And what would you say it makes more available for? Because you train other martial arts, you do some striking stuff as well. I think I'm not sure what you do, but I also know that you also kind of have been involved in teaching some kids from schools. I think it's and we can talk a bit about that too, but maybe some self-defense or some jiu-jitsu or whatever it is. But my question is, what does the meditation make more available that if you weren't doing that meditation, you would be different?
I think it sort of allows you to respond to your environment in the moment a little bit better. You're not bringing so much of yourself to the table, and so you just sort of do what's necessary at the point of contact, as they say. So if you don't bring sort of all that preconceived stuff, and you don't bring anxiety and fear, and not trying to push stuff away, not trying to pull it towards you, not grasping, not trying to get a particular outcome, then you just sort of do what you do at the time.
Wow.
So if you're trained in a particular way, so, I did Thai boxing for a long time. And I guess while I was training Thai boxing, I was sort of thinking a lot about the similarities between sort of sitting meditation and standing with someone in front of you. And essentially that other person's like a mirror, they reflect everything back at you. It's another human being with all their anxiety and fear. And so you cut through all that bullshit. There's no speech involved, there's no language, there's no separation, no race, no cultural differences. It's just a person. And so I think same thing for jiu-jitsu. The contact's a lot closer, the pressure's a little bit different, but it just allows you to sort of be there and make room for yourself to breathe.
That's amazing. That's a beautiful
You know,
way.
just sort of interact, right? Like we exist in interaction with other people, and that's just an intense form of it.
It's really cool.
Yeah, wow. Normally we ask our guests about starting their martial arts journey and things like that, but I'm actually really interested how you started along this sort of meditation spiritual journey. Like, was it just something that kind of evolved, or did you make a conscious effort, or how did it come about?
I was living in, Tao, who was teaching the Thai at Collingwood. I was living in a gym with him in Richmond. We had the same Thai coach. And he brought in, he practices Tibetan Buddhism. And I think his girlfriend at the time was training with this Japanese monk, Ekai Osho. And he brought him in for a one-day workshop one day. It was like outside my bedroom, you know. And then that was like 2004. And I asked him for really specific instruction for the forms. And then I tried to practice by myself for about 9 years. And then sort of, I guess, you're just chasing your own tail, right? If you don't have proper instruction. A couple of people died in my life. And so I just thought, time to stop wasting time. I got to do what I think is valuable, apply myself to that. So I went and found him and found that community. And the community is really important in that sense. Did a retreat, sort of went over to India. And then one day I was sitting in Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha was enlightened under the Bodhi tree in the afternoon, and all those Thai monks started doing a chanting service around me. And it lasted a while. And then at the end of it, I started talking to these guys, and one of them was massaging my leg because it had gone numb. And the abbot turned around. He's like, "Have you got a teacher?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I mustn't have sounded too certain. And he sort of looked straight at me. It's like, it's like, if you don't have a teacher, you go the windy road, the sloppy direction. Like, that kind of resolved me a little bit more. And so, like, since then, I've just sort of progressively been trying to practice, more seriously, I guess. Yeah.
Wow, man, what an amazing story. Holy shit, that's so cool. So basically, that directly correlates to most people's martial arts journey as well. Because, I just remember growing up and just trying like all sorts of kind of wushu and different types of kung fu and different types of tai chi and different types of karate and taekwondo, and then I'd be training myself, and we all, smoking bongs or doing whatever and trying to teach ourselves martial arts, and just, it was a mess, really. And then I didn't really discover my jiu-jitsu journey until I was 36, I think, or 37. And all that time was wasted. Not wasted, but it was definitely a sloppy, windy trail that was, I'm sure, the same for many people, No regrets, but yeah, that really recreates my life on a lot of levels.
It's interesting, like we only come to stuff once we sort of get rid of all the extra dross, you have to get rid of all the stuff that thinks that it knows what it's doing. Well, actually, I need to find somebody who can tell me, so who's been that way before.
Yeah, we all think we know better until we give that up and go find an actual teacher.
Yeah.
And Anton mentioned as well earlier that you work with kids. Like, what do you do sort of outside of meditation? What's your work involve?
So I'm an English teacher, English humanities, but I work in re-engagement. So we service Northwest Metro mainstream schools, high schools, and we take referrals mostly for behaviour. But, they say multiple risk factors. So it could be anything from behaviour to complete non-attendance. Take like 8 to 10 kids at a time, 3 times a year, and do an intensive with them. So we do core subjects, numeracy, literacy, and then we'll have people come in incursions like family planning, legal aid, that sort of thing.
Wow.
And then I spent during COVID, I built a gym at one of our sites. And so doing some boxing with them, doing some strength training, trying to talk about functional anatomy, and just sort of counteracting, being hunched over in front of stuff all the time. And then end of last year, we started doing jits with them on Fridays. So we had Tiago and Cooper come out to Kobe a couple of times. And now it's turned into something we're doing at Collingwood. So we're doing it with Tim Baker and April and Healy.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. You are going to heaven. If there's a heaven, you're going there, man. That's a really amazing contribution.
Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to give them tools, because we've only got them for a short amount of time. And so trying to put structures in place that will outlast us. And also, like, a lot of these kids are fighting a lot of the time, but it's all just sort of just reacting, right? If they've got trauma backgrounds and that sort of stuff, it's just what they do. So trying to sort of show them that there's, partly that you can stand in front of someone and sort of hit them or be hit and not experience anger. It doesn't have to be an aggressive thing. And to learn sort of how you respond to that sort of intense physical pressure, and to make room for yourself to respond in a different way. Partly, like, obviously self-defense, that sort of thing. If you know how to protect yourself, you're less inclined to lash out.
Do you ever try the meditation angle with them?
Yeah.
How does that go down?
Very good success. I'm pretty determined to try, but there's a fair argument to say that their minds are just too busy. Yeah, like sometimes it works. Some kids really take to it, and some kids just hate you for it, And they've got all of that preconceived stuff. They hate sitting still. Like, they don't want to. They externalize everything, right? Like, a lot of stuff is just about blame, and so to turn it back on them, like, that's part of my methodology as well, just with questioning and stuff, right? You just turn things back on people. But you can have some pretty adverse effects, and the last thing I want to do is actually turn them off meditating.
Absolutely. I just recently read a book called The Resilience Project. Have you read that book?
We're sitting around
No,
This guy here, I don't know if it's going to show up on my camera.
Can't see that.
It's not going to work.
not focusing.
Too close.
It's because it's I have to turn off my.
Because you got your background off.
Yeah. Anyway, it's called The Resilience Project, and this guy's implemented meditation into schools really successfully. I mean, not dealing with the level of disconnection that you were talking about, like, you're dealing with a segment of those students, but just talking about anxiety in kids across the board, it's huge. It's through the roof. And this guy's managed to find a way to get gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness rolled out into schools, and schools are adopting it, and it's working. And they meditate every day. Like, these schools meditate at 8 a.m. every day. And the kids are all encouraged to join in. They start their day with meditation, and that is just amazing. Like, I just think there's no doubt about the benefits of meditation. It's science basically is where it's at as far as the impacts on well-being and happiness. And I'm really happy for that project.
It's also something that you realize within yourself very quickly after doing it. Can you imagine, if every school in the world had their kids meditating at 8 o'clock every day in every time zone, right? Like, there'd just be a wave across the planet.
Be beautiful.
Meditating.
Absolutely, man.
Pretty cool.
We talked a bit at the start about the physical kind of restrictions around meditating. What would you say for our listeners that do want to, impart this into their daily lives? Like, would it be better to sort of try and aim to do it in the mornings, do it at night? Doesn't really matter. What would you say when people have that sort of busy mind that you were talking about? Do they just, like with the physical pain, just accept it, sit with it, let it go, or do they try and push it away? What sort of strategies would you suggest?
Yoga, probably. I think, like, that's what yoga is designed for, is being able to sit. And certainly if you engage in pranayama, in breathing exercises, or in that sort of movement and linking the movement to breath, then it's a bridge toward stillness.
So you suggest people transition into meditation through yoga. That's a good way. That it's not such a stark contrast from people's busy lives to then sitting still. Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
if their mind is really active and they just can't shut it down, do they just kind of give it up, or do they push through? Because I feel like that's a lot of people's perceptions of meditation, and that's why they don't keep going with it.
yeah, there's just I think there's an expectation that you can shut your mind down, but it's not something that you can do with your will, and that's part of the Soto Zen methodology, is to sit and return to 3 points of focus, like your hands, your straight back, and your eyes, which are partially open. And so each time you find yourself thinking or wondering, or your mind's busy, you just remind yourself to return to those 3 points. I think they use the analogy of a snake in a bag, like eventually it just settles. And our mind and our body aren't separate things. Yeah. So eventually, we can control what our body's doing. So eventually the mind follows suit, But people have an expectation that it's going to sort of happen within a particular time frame. And that's goal-oriented activity, like the goal is that we want our mind to settle. And if we engage in goal-oriented activity, then we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot. We're reaching towards something. And the act of doing that sort of gets everything going.
Man, my whole life is goal-oriented activity. Now, my whole life is a lie. What do I do?
I had really good results with a personal experiment I did a while back, and I just set a timer for every hour throughout the day, and I'd spend the first 5 minutes. This is when I wasn't that great at meditation. I'm not saying I'm a master, but I definitely meditate quite well. I can get to a meditative state quite quickly now. But I found just like 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes of every hour, to clear my mind for the next hour, gave me so much peace of mind and so much more productivity in that remaining 55 minutes. And it's not a long period of time, just to sit there, quieten the mind by letting go thought after thought. But what are your thoughts on that as a strategy for people, Dan? Do you think that's a valid kind of exercise?
Yeah, absolutely. We live in we've got so much information input so much of the time, and our mind's being pulled in a million different directions. And if we sort of just go, no, there's just this one thing that I need to do right now, then that concentration can be applied everywhere.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And you've got some good.
Yeah, man, that's almost like a really nice way to end it, I think, isn't it? It's such a beautiful thing. So yeah, Dan, in the Zoom classes, he used to read. We probably should have teed this up before. It would be great for you to read one of your he'd read a chapter of a book or something like that. Geez, so it was good, and we would all just sit there and listen, and they were really, spiritual and really lovely. So yeah, I mean, we're not that organized that we've done that, but I think, maybe you could send us the names of a couple of those ones, and we can put them in the link for the podcast when we link it out. So that'd be great if you could. That would be awesome. Maybe that could help transition some people into that kind of way of thinking of meditation and stuff like that. So
And is there
unless you had any other?
Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to kind of share with the community? Is there anything a message you want to get out? Anything that you think's important and covered?
I didn't prepare anything.
No pressure.
I think the same thing, that leads back to the same thing. Like if you're making 5 minutes at the start of every hour, or if you're just trying to do some breathing exercises before doing some jiu-jitsu, or just taking pause at the end of the day and having to think about how it's gone without trying to make it something other than what it is, like just accepting it. Same thing for reading, like particular text, like just carving out a space for yourself to have a look at what the world's doing and how you react and stuff.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah, beautiful. Fantastic. So yeah, as I said, it was you've been one that's been on our list for a long time. Thank you for making the time to be here. We will share this. We're on all the platforms now. I think we've even got a YouTube channel. Woohoo.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be out there in a couple of weeks. So yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, it's good to see you back on the mats too. I feel like I hadn't seen you for a little while, if you
No,
don't mind me saying,
been a
minus
while.
lockdown.
Yeah.
It's nice
Yeah.
to be doing it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're a legend.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys. And yeah, we'll see you soon. And
Thanks very much, Kim. Thanks, Anton.
you're welcome. Take care.
Namaste.
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 Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.